Okay, on to another project. Now, of course, if you follow my blogs, you know we're constantly on various projects. Mostly me pushing that. I know I'm one of those people, gotta have projects. But I'm gonna tell you about this one. We're still working on some various projects, but I decided to stop, take a moment, and work on this one. Now, I am a bargain shopper, bargain hunter even. I love to find a good bargain. We were recently, my husband and I, going out for yard sales, which I love. He says he loves it, but honestly, it's probably just because he loves me. And we found these lockers for $10. And I just couldn't pass them up. Looked like a good deal. I knew I'd be able to find a spot for them, and I have. What I decided to do was use them for stowing pool stuff. It's right here beside our pool or behind our pool or whatever, and I thought it'd be a great idea. Now I'm going to show you. I have a clothesline that I've blogged about before, put up right back here, and this locker was perfect size to be able to put up in front of the clothesline and screw to it. I put a cut down pallet underneath it to kind of build it up so no water will run off inside it and everything. And I'm about to paint it. Everyone knows that I'm a red fan. I've already got my handles and the numbers up there taped off with painter's tape, and I'm about to start painting everything red. Now I'll show you something else. Over here on one end, as happens with lockers, normally they're put up in a long row, and when they take them down, they're not always solid. So this end is open, and we have this pole that goes all the way through. We're just going to take it out. We don't need it. It's just going to have pool supplies in here. So we're going to take this part out, and I am going to use plywood to cover this side and then also cover the other side and just make it look like it's supposed to be that way. But I'm about to paint it, of course, red, and you'll be able to see the final product when I'm done. Okay. And the lockers are painted. It took me about 2 full coats to get them completely painted, and I'm about to, it's been a nice cloudy morning out here, so I thought I'd jump out here and do a little bit more work. I mentioned the rod that goes through the lockers, and what we've got here, I'm going to show you. The end of the rod has a welded disc on the end of it, like a washer, and it's riveted on there. There's 2 rivets, one's already out, and now I'm going to remove the other rivet. The way that this works is you drill a hole right in the center of the rivet to make it pop loose, and then I'm going to be able to pull out this rod. Okay, if you can see here on the end of this thing, the rivet popped loose. The outside of it is right there on the end of my drill bit, and now we've got 2 holes there, so I can go in and start pulling the rod out. And then the next step will be to go ahead and outfit it with wood. We got 3/4 inch plywood, a sheet of it, 4x8 sheet. And so before my husband left for work this morning, I had him to help me run it through the table saw, because it's hard on a piece that's that big for one person to run it through and keep it from binding up and everything. So those are stripped up. I've still got to cut them down to the right length, but then I can start putting this thing together. And the rod is out, so it's a big long rod. But now that that's done, I can go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, next step is up. I've got everything laid out for myself, had to go round up cords and plug them in and get tools over here. But I want to show you what the next step is. When I set this in place, I put a cut down pallet underneath it to raise it up. I don't want it to sit on the ground. Occasionally we have hard rains, and I don't want water to flow into this. I set it down in front of one end of my clothesline, and when I put the pallet down, put it on top of it, I had to use a 2x4 underneath it to shim it up to get it level so that I could then screw it into the back side of this post. Now that shim has to come out. I'll show you. it's probably an additional foot of 2x4 sticking out. I've got the Sawzall here. I'm going to cut it off, and then I've already cut down the basically trim boards. I've got 2x4s that I am putting around the base of it, basically to cover up the pallet so it looks a little bit more finished out. And so that's my next step, because I mentioned that one end is open. Well, since it's open, it's got sides that kind of flail about, and I've got to have those baseboards on there so that I can push this back into place and screw it down to where it won't move while I put my sideboards up. So on to the next step. Okay, so I got the base plate put in all the way around, and now it's time to cut my sides. Now, we stripped up, I mentioned earlier, we stripped up the sheet of 3/4 inch plywood this morning on the table saw. It's better with 2 people. That's a big piece of wood to try and run through on a table saw by yourself. But now, so they're to the width. Now I've got to cut 2 pieces down to 72 inches tall. And I've already I made my measurements, and I used a straight edge to make my line. You can see down here. And since these 2 pieces are exactly the same, I decided to stack them up and cut them both at the same time. I've got my blade set to the correct depth to be able to go all the way through it, and that keeps me from having to cut 2 separate pieces. I have no problem with any power tools. However, I will say this: I'm not the best at straight cuts with a skill saw. It's kind of like one of those things where you can do everything just like normal, but when you have to do precision work and you get up really close, my hand starts doing this. So straight cuts with the skill saw, not exactly my forte, but I think I can manage the 15-inch cut, and I can put it on the bottom so you can't really see, just in case it ends up a little bit off. But that's the next step. Believe it or not, I didn't do half bad. Okay, so this is the wrap up for this particular project. I just got through finishing it. I'm going to show you. I just did the staining, which is actually not stain, it is a stain and seal. It's the same stuff we use on our pool deck, but I wanted to at least give you the final project here and show you what it looks like. I showed you about where I put the lockers up on a pallet in front of our clothesline. I attached it there, and it's sturdy now. And then I ripped boards, 3/4 inch plywood, to go up both sides and across the top. And I just got through treating it to kind of give it a finished look. And match the rest of our stuff, and also of course to seal it so it'll last for a while. We're going to be using these lockers to house all of our pool equipment so that the kids will maybe stop throwing it around in the yard and what have you. But I'm really happy with this project, and now it is time to move on. I've got to stain that as well, and then I've got to stain that. Both brand new projects you will be seeing very shortly.